Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining me in the locker room on this Wednesday, June 21st. I'm Alan Locher. Lisa McCourt is a best-selling author and the proud mom of a transgender daughter. She serves as president of her local PFLAG chapter and is here today to discuss her work with the organization on raising a transgender daughter at a time when lawmakers are trying to silence trans kids, and talk about her new book, Free Your Joy: The 12 Keys to Sustainable Happiness. Lisa has written many books about joy and love that have sold over 9 million copies. Her best-selling picture book, I Love You, Stinky Face, has become an emblem of unconditional love within the LGBTQ plus community, gifted to souls of all ages by any ally wanting to say, I love and celebrate you completely just as you are. She is the founder of Joy School and the host of the Do Joy podcast. She also serves as the co-chair of the Safe to Be Me coalition, working to preserve affirming conditions and inclusivity for all students in Florida's second largest school district. Please help me welcome Lisa McCourt to the locker room. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Alan. I'm so thrilled to be with you today. Thank you.
I'm thrilled you're here and grateful to have you here during Pride Month to chat about so many issues concerning the LGBTQ plus community. Happy Pride. And we must thank our mutual friend, John Fedenich, for connecting us.
Hi, John. Good luck to you.
Almost 25 years ago, when you were pregnant with your first child, you wrote what is now your most successful book, I Love You, Stinky Face. Tell me where the idea for the book came from.
I was a closet personal development junkie. I wasn't out in the open with that, but I was doing a lot of healing on my own stuff, a lot of things that I needed to look at and address. And it had become so clear to me how so many of us, I don't want to say all, but I'd almost say all, how so many of us carry around core unworthiness, feelings of shame, whether that's conscious or subconscious. Shame is one of those things that nobody wants to admit they're carrying it around because it implies you've done something wrong. And that's not really the case at all. Most of us carry shame over things that are not at all something that would warrant us to carry that shame. And so because this was so much in my consciousness at the time, and I realized that these beliefs happen when we're so young, I wanted to write a story for my baby that was in my belly. And I thought, how beautiful if I could get this out in the world as well, that would just start right from the get-go, just really planting these seeds of there is nothing you could do that would challenge my love for you. My love for you is so big and so unconditional. You be however you want to be in the world. You be whatever you're going to be. And I'm so excited to get to witness that and be here with you. And it doesn't matter what that turns out to be. That's the messaging. It's written in kid language, like much more funny, fun, kid language. But that's what I really felt like. I've always had this weird sort of feeling like I'm here to up level the love and joy in the world somehow. Like I need to get this messaging out to more young beings that you're perfect just as you are. And that's what the book did. And I think that's why it became as successful as it was. It's sold many millions of copies and has 10 sequels, and it's been around for 25 years.
10 sequels?
Mm-hmm.
That's incredible. You said it as you started to describe this, you were a closeted, person of bettering yourself. Why, where did it come from, do you think? Like, where did it start?
I was very, very, very withdrawn as a child and young person. I journaled. Journaling was my solace, my therapy, my place that I could be myself and just, really have that comfort that I wasn't finding in the world out there. And in my 14-year-old journal, I've copied, because I still have it, and pages and pages where I had copied out of a Wayne Dyer book. I wish I had written how that Wayne Dyer book got in my hands at 14. I have no idea, but that was my first exposure to these kind of spiritual, really pop site kind of ideas that became my lifeline. It was the introduction through Wayne Dyer.
Wow. And at 14, which is so interesting. And I love that you don't even know where it came from. Came from above.
Yeah, I can't imagine how that got in my hands.
So journaling, you were writing. When did you know you had a talent for it?
Well, I didn't I wasn't super great at anything else in school. I wasn't great at math or science or any of those things. I always had a pretty ADD brain. And it was kind of the thing that I got kudos for. It was the thing that got me the better grades. And every class had some sort of paper to write. And it was always in the papers that I nailed it. But I really think it's just that Malcolm Gladwell thing about put thousands of hours, 10,000 hours into anything, and you're going to be able to master it. I think it was just the hours that I spent journaling just gave me that practice, so that writing always came really easily to me and just felt like my superpower.
Well, and I think it's so important too, though. You mentioned in school getting that affirmation. I think for any child in something they're good at, it can lead to the success it has led to with your, books. It's important for kids to receive that. If they're good at it, to get that honest feedback, kept you, doing it more and more. So kudos to those teachers.
Exactly. I'm still friends with some of them on Facebook.
I love that. I mean, it really is so important. Well, let's pivot a little since it is Pride Month. I wanted to talk about how you are a very proud mom of a transgender daughter, Thalia Valerie, who recently left your home state of Florida for the Big Apple, New York City on June 9th. And as you posted, why would they ever choose to stay in Florida? As a proud mom, can you talk about what it's been like to see the target Florida has put on your daughter and the LGBTQ plus community?
Alan, I think that when I wrote that, probably why would they ever choose to stay in Florida was prior to the point where it's not even a choice. Transgender people do not have the choice anymore to stay in Florida. Their doctor that they went to, I'm using the plural because Talia and her boyfriend, my honorary son Victor, are both transgender. They both knew that they needed to leave Florida and are still looking for a place in New York. Their doctor closed up shop. Their doctor can't serve them anymore. For them to continue on their gender affirming care, that every medical association that has studied this is in agreement about what transgender people require for their basic care. That care is no longer legal to be accessed in Florida. They would have to buy their hormones from black market sources that are super dodgy, that everybody agrees it's not a good idea. So what had started out for them as kind of this fun adventure, we're going to move to New York, it's going to be a better place for us, everybody was happy and excited about it. It took this really dark turn where it's not even a choice now. Florida has absolutely made them refugees.
Wow. I mean, could you have ever, how long have you been living there now?
About 30 years.
Could you imagine that it would turn into a state like that?
No, I was never a political person. I was a registered independent most of my life. I can see pros and cons of all the different sides on these things. I never, ever imagined that this would be coming, that this would be what it's turned into be in, recent, I want to say recent decade, but really it was been shorter than that, recent.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Coming from a mom, who's watching her daughter and her daughter's boyfriend go through this, what do you think the biggest misconceptions or lies the lawmakers are saying about trans kids?
I think they're stirring up fear that they have to know is a lie. They're preying on, and I really do, Alan, I try to understand everybody's point of view in this. I try to understand that there are people who don't understand this and think it's something that if their child is exposed to it, if we condone this, if we allow this to happen, it might happen to my family. Mm-hmm. God forbid, this thing could happen to my family if I allow for there to be transgender existing in the world. And I think that's the fear that the current legislation is all about. It's trying to deny it, make sure it's not in the books, make sure the teachers can't talk about it, make sure that there's no way that your presumably cisgender heterosexual child is going to be in a classroom next to a transgender child who's being respected in their truth, and it's going to be catchy. They're gonna, it's gonna be contagious. But I always say
it's gonna rub off.
Yeah, they'll make that decision to go join that lifestyle. It's not a decision. All of the authorities are in agreement. This is a way that people are born. And the very worst thing that can happen to your presumably cisgender heterosexual child, which nobody really knows, by the way, but your presumably cisgender heterosexual child, the worst thing that could happen is they're going to see inclusivity and respect modeled in the classroom. And that's what is being threatened. And that's what is, there's all this, nope, we don't want anybody to see that modeled in the classroom. We'd rather shut that down, pretend that doesn't exist, pretend it's not a real way that people are born in the world, because they're so fearful that this horrible thing could happen in their family.
Yeah, right. And it can happen to any family. It's
not a horrible thing, and yes, it can happen in
and Lady Gaga says it, we are born this way. And there's nothing, supporting your child is the best thing you could do for them in the long run, and educate them. And that's, the first thing you said is like the fear is lack of education. They don't fully understand. Like you said, it is proven. There are medical, science and all of that behind it, that it's not going to rub off. It's not going to, sitting next to a trans or a gay or a lesbian is not going to make your child one way or the other.
Every association that we've trusted for generations, the American Medical Association, the American Psychiatric Association, the American Psychological Association, the jury's in, they're all in agreement. So anybody who ignores that is either just really trying to spread untruths, or is just that ignorant and hasn't taken the time to learn the facts about that this is just a normal way that people exist in the world. And it feels scary because they hear the statistics, the suicide statistics, the addiction, the anxiety, the depression. None of that is inherent to being gay or transgender. None of it is. There's absolutely nothing that ties those things to being gay or transgender. It's all cultural. It's because of the cultural attitudes that we have these statistics, which scare people and make them think, oh, I don't want my child to have that horrible condition.
It just sort of boggles my mind that we're going backwards. And, we're letting it, I don't know if we're letting it or whatever the right terminology is, but it become political and not actual conversations about education and the importance of equality and all of that, all of those things that we so desperately need. Yeah. I can't imagine being a mom and watching and hearing what is going on. But Talia's quite lucky that you are who you are. She is 25 years old today, and you mentioned she had come out at 22. So I'm curious if you can sort of describe the coming out journey for both of you.
Yeah. So Tally, in my PFLAG groups, it's people come who are in crisis. Like, my child has come out as transgender. My head's exploding. I don't know what to do. They always want to know, was it really traumatic for you when Talia came out? And it was, but not for the same reasons that I often see in the PFLAG community. I hear people talk about, it's the death of my child, the way I knew them. It's the death of my dreams for this child. I truly did not have any of that, Alan. For me, it was, how could my child have suffered with this for 22 years alone? And how could I have not have known, and I have not seen it? This child grew up in an extremely progressive home. My gay friends were in and out all the time. She knew there was absolutely no issue there, but I never had a transgender friend. I never knew anyone who was transgender, and it wasn't in the media. It wasn't talked about the way it is now. I thought I was Miss LGBTQ friendly. I had no idea really what that T was all about, that letter in the rainbow acronym. So it was a lot of blaming myself, a lot of self-incrimination. How could I have not seen this? Because she was always a feminine boy. She was always, when she was very young, I remember, the neighborhood moms and I, we get all the kids together and we all used to joke about, well, I'm going to use the name T because we don't say the dead name anymore, but it was a T name. So they used to say, well, T's going to be gay because T always wanted to play with the girls and do the things that the girls were doing. And I'm like, yeah, I think so. And then when puberty came around, or close to puberty time, I sat this child down and let's talk about all the ways that people love one another. And, just in case there was anything they wanted to share, and they took it all in and started having girlfriends all through high school. So I just thought, okay, I have a sweet, sensitive boy. I just have this, this is what I've
Which
got.
is very possible too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
But in that conversation, Alan, I didn't say, and by the way, if you've always felt like a girl in a boy's body, you can tell me that too. And that's why I think education is so important, and how shutting down this knowledge, this information is the worst thing that could happen. Because if parents knew to go that distance, we would have had such a different trajectory if we had known sooner that Talia was transgender. A really beautiful, different trajectory.
Yeah. How did you begin to learn and do the research and talk to people? And
Yeah, well, PFLAG, the organization that I serve, is a fabulous first place. It's pflag.org. There are publications you can download there. I shared those publications with all my relatives at the time, all our friends, because they're just so clear to explain, this is the situation over here. Here's how you can support my child. Here's how we can respect everything that's going on. So PFLAG was one of my first digging around learning experiences. We went to a PFLAG meeting. My local chapter down here is not very robust. We have a lot of other excellent resources, which is not the case across Florida by any means. But I'm in Palm Beach County. The Palm Beach County PFLAG was way up in the northern part, and I'm in the southern part. So we went to a Broward meeting, and Broward, Fort Lauderdale area has a lot of resources. So I think that people are used to doing that rather than relying on PFLAG. So it was not super, not a lot of people there. We ended up doing more of our meetings and support through SunServe, which is an excellent organization down here in Fort Lauderdale. But I stayed in contact with the then leader of PFLAG. And when she moved, there really wasn't anybody in line for the job. So even though I'm not a Broward County resident, she's like, you're so involved. You keep saying you want to help out and do things. Would you like to, take over as PFLAG president? So I said, absolutely. So that's how I got involved with them.
That's incredible. The minute in researching and seeing that you're working with PFLAG, it brings me back, because my best friend, George, and I, our mothers knew each other. They're both immigrants with big accents. And when we had come out to them, they both had talked about going to PFLAG. And we still to this day laugh at the thought. They never did it, but the thought of them going with their accents and getting up and speaking and no one understanding them. But they did want to,
We would have opened our arms to them.
That's a big deal. I was very lucky. Like, my dad did not know, we didn't trust that he would understand. He was 10 years older than my mom. But, my mom was a hairdresser. She had gay friends, she knew, and she asked me.
She asked you. Good for her.
Yeah.
Good for that mom. You go give her a big hug for me.
Yeah, I wish she was here. I wish she was here. But she did. And I was very blessed. I'll never forget calling a friend saying, I think she's about to ask me. And that gay friend said, if she's going to ask you, say, yeah, no reason to lie. Like, she's asking. It was a great thing. Any hesitancy of taking that role on for you? Leading PFLAG down there?
None. And, in terms of the way that PFLAG typically serves in the meetings, we don't have a lot of attendance at those. So it's given me other avenues to explore. I go to the superintendent meetings at the schools sometimes. I just try to stay active with other community partners like the Safe to Be Me Coalition. And really, it's just about imagining, just wishing that things had been different when my Tally was going through this, and really wanting to do anything I can to encourage parents to be like your beautiful mom, and just ask and just let them know. I brought this to show Alan. I don't know if you can see it, but this has been in my home for many, many years. This is artwork that Tally did in high school when she was 15 years old. It was an art class assignment to paint on a bottle.
Beautiful.
And I always just looked at it thinking like, oh, that's sad girl. Tally drew a sad girl. It wasn't until after she came out, Alan, that she showed me the bottom, and it's titled Inside. It's titled Inside, and she did it in 2013. And this, that thing in my house, I'm sorry, I'm crying on your show, but that's what makes me so dedicated to PFLAG and any child that I can help to not have to feel that way for a second longer than necessary. And it really is up to parents to provide that space and that support.
I mean, it really, a safe space. That's all a child needs to thrive. It really is. Talk about Thalia in the last 3 years, how the changes that you've seen since her coming out.
I mean, she was always a good child, never a problem, never any anger or rebellion, but she just always seemed hard to reach. She just always seemed in her own world. The teachers always said ADD, ADD. And, very big in her gaming community, which I understand is just a fabulous supportive place for transgender kids, because she always gamed as female characters, and it gave her an outlet to go be who she really is in the world. But, so to me, it was just like, oh, I understand now. I know what's been going on now. This can all fall away, this whole shell, and she's explained to me that she just really did not know enough to come out earlier than she did. She didn't know anybody who was transgender. When you would first hear about these kinds of things, she would do some online searching and get some sketchy things that she'd come back saying, gotta shut that down, that's not me, that's not me. And she has told me that she always knew that I would be supportive, but it was almost like, once I tell mom, I got to go all the way with it. And I'm not.
I get it.
So since she's been out, it's just been like, I finally have my child. I have my whole child. I see every bit of her. She's funny. She's creative. She's snarky. She's just this like amazing friend that I always knew was in there. It's not like the person changes. It's just you get the full version of that person. And
they must be hiding. There's no doubt that there's some hiding going on.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm I can't speak for any of my family, but I'm sure I'm a completely different individual being out than when I was, growing up. Fearful. Sure. And I grew up at a time really when it was, no representation anywhere. People ask like, when, sort of, when did you know you were gay? And I don't know that I knew I was gay because there was no conversation about gay. And that's the scary part to me of what is happening. That education, that representation of not seeing yourself in others, having, oh my God, I couldn't imagine what it would be like to have a teacher who talked about his husband or something. Like, I think that's incredible. And now down in Florida, you can't even, speak or have a picture of your spouse.
The laws are so infuriating, Alan. It's not the proponents of these laws would be quick to point out that's not specifically stated, and it's not in that exact language, but the language is so vague and so permissive that any parent who objects to anything going on in the school can sue the school. So yeah, teachers have, I know excellent, dedicated teachers who have cleared their libraries of any of the books that show gay family representation or anything that invites, gender identity exploration, or any of these books that accurately portray how people come in the world, how, one of the ways that people exist in the world, are banned, and it's up to a really brave teacher to let that get through, because they can lose their teaching license, they can be sued personally, their school can be sued. That's what the laws are allowing for now, and that's why it's so dangerous for kids.
Which is, I feel like we're talking 1930s when you say things like that. It's really so shocking.
Yeah, teachers are heartbroken, and there are a few brave ones who are continuing to be that resource for kids. But the laws do state that a teacher is not allowed to voluntarily share their pronouns or ask a child's pronouns. You can, as a parent, go in and request that your child's proper name and pronouns be used, but there's no enforcement of that. You're free to request it, but any teacher who doesn't want to comply is welcome to not comply. So it's just a really dangerous thing for really vulnerable kids. And things had been looking a little bit promising. I feel like the year Tal came out, she could see a little bit of hope in the horizon. Like, I think that the world is starting to actually say that how I am is okay. I'm feeling brave enough in this moment to stick my big toe out. It was scary as hell, but I'm going to go test the waters, because it seems like the world is expanding to include people like me. And then bam. So I can't imagine, if she hadn't come out then, that in this climate that she would have had the strength and the courage to do it. And it breaks my heart for all the kids who are experiencing that right now, of any age.
I could not agree more. I mean, it really, that, and you're right. When she did, it was so many trans actors on television. We never, and even gay actors. I mean, which was a rare thing. I mean, like I said, there was nobody. Soap with Billy Crystal was the show,
Oh gosh. And that representation.
That wasn't great representation, but it was the only thing. And understanding that. You mentioned you have an event tonight, a virtual event, and then there's the 5th annual Family Pride celebration you're taking part in this Saturday. Can you talk about both and how people can join tonight if they want?
Absolutely. Yeah. So my Joy School, I have an online Joy School that's all about personal development. And I have guest teachers once a month on the 3rd Wednesday of every month. And tonight's guest teacher is Scott Stabile, who is just a lovely, lovely, lovely author, who is one of my favorite teachers of self-compassion, self-care, self-love. We're going to be talking about releasing shame, subconscious shame. It's not just exclusive to the LGBTQ community. Scott's gay, so he's going to talk about it from that lens. But it's really, all of us are carrying around this shame that doesn't have to be there. It's kind of like a bubble. We can pop it with the right words and approaches. So we're going to be doing that tonight at my online Joy School. It is a paid event. It's $22. You could go to McCourt.com and go to events and you'll see it. Otherwise, I wanted to extend the offer tonight or today, Alan, to your audience, that if anybody would like to come as my guest, just email me, Lisa@LisaMcCourt.com. I think it's there on the screen. So it's Lisa at that website, and I'll set you up to be our guest tonight with Scott, because it's just such a needed exploration to look at all this shame. My Joy School is all about joy. My books are all about joy, and identifying and dismissing these shame patterns that we all have running is just one of the easiest tricks for skyrocketing the joy that you experience on a day-to-day basis.
So interesting. And because I have heard about shame being such a huge part of the LGBTQ plus. I remember holding on, a friend gave me an article, and I think I read part of it years ago. It was a really enormous, out of a magazine that he had given me, but I know it was a big part. And I'm sure, as much as I mentioned, my mom asked me, it still took me 10 years later to tell many of my very straight, close friends, because of the fear of losing, their friendship. And, and telling my best girlfriend from high school, when I finally did, she said, about time. And, nothing changed, and nothing changed with any of them, which was, the fear was so deep within me, you know, it's crazy.
And that's a great way to express it. We call it fear. We don't call it shame, because we think if we call it shame, it means that we did something wrong. And most of us in our conscious mind would say, I didn't do anything wrong. There's nothing wrong with me telling people that I'm gay. This is the way I am. We think that in our conscious mind, but subconsciously we've been so programmed to carry that as shame that why would anybody put off expressing who they authentically are with their loved ones?
Well, and that's, when we talk about what's going on in, Florida, that's what scares me. I mean, like I'm so joyful about hearing kids who are 11 years old or 12 expressing that they are gay without that shame, and that their parents are accepting them openly. That is what a parent should be doing, and a child should feel comfortable. I couldn't have articulated that at 11 years old if I wanted to, because, there was nothing to articulate, because I had nothing to view. They have so much to view, and I'm afraid of that view going away for people.
Absolutely.
And especially for, Talia and the trans community, because it took so much longer for them to be validated and accepted. And to have this happening is a shame.
Mm-hmm. And the deterrents will say, how could a child that young know they're gay? They're not sexualized yet. They shouldn't know if they're gay. We start feeding kids Disney movies out of the womb. They're watching The Prince Kiss the Princess from the time they're 10 days old. Yeah. So don't tell me that young children don't have a sense of their romantic leanings. It's not about sex per se. It's just understanding their romantic leanings. That starts at a young age.
I love it. It's a great way to describe it, but it is. I mean, and we, we don't articulate it necessarily in the same way. It doesn't become sexual until they're older. But I mean, there are kids. I mean, when you hear them talk about knowing that they were trans or gay, say they knew at 4 or 5, which is also to me a, mind-boggling idea for me, because, but they must have seen conversations to understand, or really felt that affection for that prince or princess. It stuck with them. They knew that they felt for Aladdin, not Jasmine or something. That's fascinating. You also mentioned that you are a co-chair of the Safe to Be Me Coalition. Can you talk about what they do?
Basically, the Safe to Be Me Coalition used to exist through the Broward school systems and can no longer exist directly through the schools. So some community partners took it over. Equality Florida is I'm so in awe of this organization, all the amazing work they do. Janie Ruiz is our local superstar in that organization, and she's a co-chair. We have some other representation from community partners. But basically, it's just trying to preserve somebody fighting for these kids' rights. In the Broward County school system, there's no guide of conduct for how to handle issues that come up with bullying, or kids who want to go to a teacher for help with something LGBTQ related. There was a guide in place years ago that it was decided that was too lenient a guide, and it was pulled. It's never been replaced. So the teachers don't know what to do. The students, the parents have no ruling they can point to say this teacher needs to be respectful of my child. So that's one of the recent real pushes that the Safe to Be Me Coalition has been trying to get back in place, is some sort of documentation for what is the bottom line on how these things are to be handled. Because if you annoy any parent who has any viewpoint, they're going to sue you, and you're going to not be able to teach anymore. That leads to a lot of trauma for children.
This might be a loaded question, but if you could sit down with your governor, is there something that immediately comes to mind that you would say?
I don't know my governor's heart, so I don't know if the motives are pure politically based. I don't know that he has a strong opinion one way or another. Definitely, he is of the opinion that there are enough voters who feel in alignment with what he puts out that he's going to keep putting it out there to attract and keep these voters, which, if you think about it, is a much scarier thought even than we have a few politicians who think this way. The fact that they're catering to voter bases that feel this way is even more terrifying. I think that I would implore some education. I would like to send him some reading material. I would like for him to just admit that he is aware that every organization understands that children are born this way and it's not contagious. And we have a very specific protocol for how to make children comfortable and able to thrive who fall under this category. When medical science and biological understanding, came about autism, we put things in place to help autistic kids thrive, right? With ADD kids, we have 504 plans. We have all these things to help them thrive. It's not even that hard to help transgender kids thrive. They don't even have those to be respected in their true identity, which means name,
and have medical care if they
pronouns. Need it. Yeah. So it's not a hard thing to provide a safe, inclusive environment for these kids, but because doing so still frightens a lot of people, we're not doing it. We're deciding to sacrifice these kids to let them become suicide risks and have anxiety and depression and all the things that come with any marginalized group that is completely hated on and disrespected by the culture that they live in. We're choosing to sacrifice those kids to make some of these parents more comfortable with the environment that their child will be in school. And actually, I hate to say this, but it's going to come back to bite them, because a quarter of their kids are gay or trans. These are the statistics. These are the statistics, the latest from the World
and to know that your parents set out to do that. Yeah. And hearing you just even say, like, you don't know his heart, and that it could just be because of the political base is even scarier to me. Like that, we are talking about human beings. We're talking about children. We're talking, that's where it's sad, and it makes me go back to sort of the whole pandemic and the very politicized vaccine conversation. Educate yourself. That is a very important thing in no matter what. You're going to vaccinate your child, educate. Your children will be exposed to many different cultures, and it was interesting. I had a guest because I do a series about anti-Semitism because I'm marginalized twice because I'm Jewish and gay. And, he works for the Foundation to Combat Anti-Semitism, and he is the executive director and is gay. And I was talking to him about how he feels in today's world. And it was so interesting because he related to sort of the time when I was coming out, where the word faggot was used and targeted on people, and how we watched the conversation change and the acceptance start to happen in the gay community. And that's what they're trying to do with the Foundation to Combat Anti-Semitism, to make people aware that you might be sitting next to a Jewish person or talking, they are just like you. And it was just fascinating to see that you could compare that in that way. But it is all about education.
It really is. And I feel like that has to be presented in a gentle approach, because people don't want to be called out on their ignorance. So we have to find ways to, hey, look at this article. Hey, I just heard this great TED Talk. Let me send it to you. We have to, everybody who does understand calling all all y'all out there, okay? Everybody who understands what it means to be gay or trans, help gently to educate those around us. If we come at them like this, they're just going to keep pushing back. But really, exposure to the facts is what will turn the tide eventually. It has to.
I hope so. From your lips. Well, let's talk about joy. You have taught it for over 2 decades. You talked a bit about the path there. How did you learn the principles to teach others about joy?
Yeah, I think it's, it's always our life provides the contrast, right? So I definitely did not have access to joy in my younger life and early adulthood. I knew how to make it all look good. I knew how to paste on an authentic smile for everybody and be the chameleon that everybody wants. When I started really immersing myself in these principles and they started to show up in my life, like the magic started to take hold in my life and change everything, it just became like there's nothing else I can do with my life that would be as meaningful as, there's this big, shiny, gorgeous thing over here, y'all. And you look around and you realize that most of the people walking the planet don't see it. And you just want to look at this, whether that means writing books about it, or I've had radio shows, podcasts. The Joy School it's really, one of my Joy Schoolers called me a curator, which I love. It's like I have learned all of the ancient spiritual principles, the psychology principles, the energetic principles, and I curate it into digestible practices and things that people can go and take into their lives, so that once the magic starts taking hold, then it's easy, for them to go find other resources. I love to point them in the right direction of other resources too. That's why I have the guest teachers at Joy School. But it's really this desire to be a bridge between this vast understanding that I know has to be the future of humanity, but most folks just haven't been exposed to it yet. So I want to just help that exposure along.
There was naysayers in everything we do. And I'm sure there's people who walk into the classroom who are skeptical. How do you approach that and steer them?
Yeah, the rational brain has to get on board before anything else can sort of open, before the heart can open, before we can energetically open to these truths. So, I mean, I think pointing out how human awareness develops is really eye-opening for a lot of people. We come into this human gig just so eager to gather information and to know, how is it here? What are the rules here, so that we can build on that? And we start getting input from our caregivers and our schools and maybe the religion we're brought up in our culture. And all of that creates these core beliefs that we just continue to feed throughout our lives, right? There are so many more bits of information available to us in any given moment than our puny little minds can process. So how our minds select which bits of information to allow through this filtration system always depends on those early beliefs, those core beliefs, because we have this confirmation bias, and it's just a easier system if we continue to feed beliefs that we originally set up. And for a lot of us, for various reasons, there's beliefs about core unworthiness, beliefs that you inherited from your caregivers about the world is a scary and unpredictable place, or money is evil, or love is dangerous, or, we absorb these messages, not just from our caregivers' words, but from their energy and just from a whole barrage of messaging. And then that becomes the keyhole that we see reality through, because we're blinded to any other impressions. So we go into a lot more depth with that particular exploration in Joy School. But once we start to see how much information there is outside of our keyhole of perception, and we see how that perception filter was formed, we start questioning all our thoughts. And when you start authentically questioning the bullcrap negative thoughts in your head about yourself and about the world, you start feeling the joy that's available there, right? The joy is around us. Any one of us could have joy in our lives. We're creating our lives through this filter of beliefs that we've established. So it really starts as kind of a rational in our brain process of seeing how that all got set up. And then we start noticing when these thoughts come in, oh, is that even like based in anything real? No, that's based in that thing I made up when I was 2, and that just starts to expand the keyhole.
So much is what we are exposed to,
Yeah.
whether it's education or culture or or how you're I mean, I have a dear friend I'll never forget who spoke negatively about gay folks and different races, and one day had a different perception, and I and it was before I think I'd come out to her, and I just said, what, where did that come from? And she basically said, like, my father or my parents, because it's those things we are exposed to. Hate is, many people say, is born at home.
It's learned. We don't come in here hating. It's definitely learned. And we all want to think that, oh no, I'm in charge of my opinions and my perceptions and what I'm creating in my life. And when we see how little we are actually in charge of it, how influenced we are by those early beliefs we set up, that's when we can authentically step in and start taking charge of our own beliefs and what we create.
What can joy do for people?
We do a thing when people are first coming into joy school, or actually at the beginning of my book, this is one of the exercises as well, is to tell me a year from now, what would joy look like in your life? What would a joyful life be, that you could imagine? And for most people, the description of that is mostly external situations, relationships, career, accomplishments, money, maybe toys. Sometimes it's, things like more confidence or more inner peace, and that's interspersed in there. And that's all wonderful. And we can create all of that. And that's like, okay, fine. Those will be your external markers of a joyful life. Now let's talk about the internal markers of joy. And that's a list of pillars, of shifts that we can make within ourselves, because we've all been trained to think, when I have that out there, then I can have the joy in here. And it's really the other way around. It's finding those qualities inside, which is not too hard to do with a few practices, and it takes some repetition. We all are habituated to our default patterns and our reactivity, so it takes some dedication to some new habits.
But especially if we come in at an age like I am, it's not, because it's like you said, those things are learned at such a young age, and that's why they've stuck with them, right?
Yes.
So it makes sense, that repetition, because we've been going through, decades of believing our beliefs, per se.
Yeah. Habituated thought is not, are habits easy to break? No. Are they breakable? Yeah. People do it every day. It just requires, a commitment to doing it. And you're right. It's been shown that people's thoughts, we have 80,000 thoughts a day. 90% of them are basically on repeat. They're the same thoughts we had yesterday and the week before and the year before that. And so it really is first becoming the observer of our thoughts. And that's a spiritual principle that a lot of gurus talk about. We have to get that little bit of distance from what's going on in there so we can become the observer of it. And just that distance creates a space that we can start seeing how malleable those thought patterns really are and how to work with them and change them.
Well, you have your new book, Free Your Joy, coming out August 22nd.
Available for pre-order already.
Yeah. And you can pre-order it at the link. It's on down below on YouTube, right below. Tell us about the book and what prompted you to write this at this stage. Because you've written hundreds.
I've written a lot of books. A lot of the books that I've written about the personal development arena have been ghostwritten, so there aren't a whole lot of those books for adults in my name. The last one that I wrote about my joy trainings was over 10 years ago. I had a Hay House book called Juicy Joy, which laid out everything that I did at the time with my joy training clients. And I really wasn't even thinking about writing a new book. and a publisher that I've worked with for many, many years, the publisher of the Chicken Soup for the Soul books. I had done books with them back in Jack Canfield and Mark Victor Hansen's day. I collaborated with them on the children's books. Reached out to me and said, we think it's time for you to do another book about joy. And I looked at what I was teaching currently versus 10 years ago when I had the last book out. And that was what convinced me to do it. I feel like when I first was writing about joy, I really thought I'm going to just pull out the most powerful nuggets and polish them up and artfully offer them up so that people don't have to waste time in all those, 2-step forward, 3-step back little side steps that defined my journey. But I've really come to realize over time that it's just not an overnight thing. It's not an overnight process. So I loved this opportunity to write the book in a really expansive way where it takes readers through a full year. If they want to read it that way,
I started to read it and noticed that the full year, commit to the full year.
With a specific
change takes time.
Yeah. It does. And it doesn't mean that you don't see any progress or any improvement prior to that. You see things changing and shifting and improving the whole journey all along the way. But it's basically a weekly practice that you pay attention to and take into your life, which sets the stage for the next week's practice and the next and the next. And people can rush through it if they want. I can't tell them not to. But ideally, to my mind, you just want to really give that respect and honoring to each of the steps in the process so that it has time to integrate.
Well, I noticed, as I didn't get very far because work and all this, but I'm curious because of where you started, is journaling a part of it?
Yes, but I don't like that to scare people because it's not.
No, it shouldn't, but I would think it probably is helpful.
The journal becomes a tool for accessing our inner wisdom that every single person has, right? Every person walking the planet has a soul knowing, has a guidance system. It's not respected or honored or something that people bother to learn a connection to in our society. So most of us are kind of ignoring it. So the journal is just a tool for kind of unlocking that dialogue with your own inner knowing. We all have it.
I love that. You said that a lot of people coming into your school feel working on their own joy is selfish, but you say otherwise. Can you describe that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that today, with the world on fire, everybody's out there playing whack-a-mole, and it's like, I don't have time to pay attention to my joy. That's so frivolous. That's like, how could I even put my joy ahead of all these responsibilities to all these people? And there are people suffering. So isn't it selfish to focus on my joy? No. Every spiritual master throughout time, all across the planet, has said, if you want to change the macrocosm, you have to start with the microcosm. You have to elevate your own energy, your own vibration, and that's how you're effective out there. Your energy affects every person you encounter, from your closest, nearest, and dearest to the kid making your deli sandwich to the guy who stepped on the elevator with you. Every person that you encounter online or in person is being affected by how you're showing up in the world, how you are in connection with your highest self. So it is the most unselfish thing you can do for everyone around you to elevate your own joy. That makes you an elevator for others.
I love that. I mean, I think, there's, you can, sort of, just smiling, you can see like a smile changes everything. It really does. When you see a smile on someone, or if you help put that smile there.
It's not hard to do. And it feels so good. It elevates your vibration when you've caused someone else to smile.
Yeah, it's so true. Talia's been living, or she's here in New York 2 weeks now. Are they enjoying it?
They love New York so much. They're actually back in Florida, Alan. They saw a bunch of places, had not found anything, came back here, had some applications out. So far, it's not looking good. It's a tough place to find a place to rent. They have co-signers. They have, everything, all the boxes are checked, but they've never been renters before. They don't have that established rental history.
Uh,
They have, jobs that are kind of like about to start. They don't have like years of pay stubs of a
right.
job that they've had. So they just don't look real attractive to renters right now. We're hoping the right one will step up and give these two amazing kids the opportunity that they will so knock out of the park once they're given that opportunity. But
Oh, I hope so. I hope so.
they're going to have to go back if these, we're still holding out. There's still a few applications they've yet to hear on places that they liked, but they'll have to go back and look some more if these don't work out.
Wow. I will keep my ears open because I can only imagine that they were so close, being here. And
they're amazing, responsible kids. Vic already has a job lined up there. Tally's eager to, find one there, but she does online work that she, makes money with. So they're not really a rental risk, but I guess compared to, when a apartment goes up, they probably have 50 applications, and
which is amazing to me that, right, because so many people have left as well, when the pandemic hit. But Lisa, it has been a pure joy to talk to you today. It really, 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 really has. Thank you to John, but just seriously, what you're doing for Talia, for other young kids by doing the work at PFLAG and helping parents understand, difficult things. It's not, when you had something in your mind, you have to pivot. But the acceptance is the most important thing, and you're showing them how it's done beautifully.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to rub that into my heart. It's just occurring to me that you asked something earlier that I didn't address. If you're in the Fort Lauderdale area, come to the Museum of Discovery and Science this Saturday. It's a beautiful event. They get thousands of people through. I'm going to be giving out so many gorgeous banned books to all those kids. I got
yes.
I got PFLAG stuff. Come out.
10 a.m. to 4, right?
10 to 5 at
10 to 5.
The Museum of Discovery and Science, which is just a beautiful, beautiful place. One of the rare Pride events in South Florida that's indoors and air conditioning all day. So there you go.
Good thing to point that out. I love that. That's fantastic. You have a great day. Such a pleasure. I hope to meet you in person one of these days.
Let's do that, Alan. Thank you so much. I've loved this opportunity. Thank you for inviting me.
Same here. Thanks so much. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Lisa McCourt, for joining. Don't forget, Lisa's new book, Free Your Joy, is available for pre-sale right now and will be out August 22nd. Join me next Wednesday, June 28th, when Robert Martin Seda Schreiber, a 2023 Russ Berry Making a Difference Award honoree, joins me live. Robert founded the Bayard Rustin Center for Social Justice in Princeton, New Jersey. The center offers innovative support programs and dedicated safe space for young LGBTQIA people that is staffed with trained volunteers. Remember, if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, you can do so down below. Turn on the notifications for reminders of all upcoming shows. And if you liked today's episode, click the like button. Have a great weekend, everybody. And as always, please, please stay safe.